my goal today is to tell you a little bit about our association. I'll kind of breeze through that pretty quickly. And then I'm going to talk just a little bit about tourism in the state, how it got started, what I see is happening across the state. I've pulled some slides from our parent organization, Destinations International, to talk a little bit about, oh, thank you so much, to talk a little bit about some research that they've done. So a little bit about myself before I get started so that you feel like I'm somewhat qualified to be up on this stage today. I am not a native-born Hoosier. I actually grew up in Central Illinois, right next door. I have now been here for more of my life, so I think I'm kind of honorary Indiana resident now. But I fell backwards into tourism. I did not know that this was a job that you could have in the Midwest. I graduated with a communications degree, had no idea what I wanted to do. This was back when you graduated, like you could not stay on your parents' insurance, right? Like you were, and my mom, I have this vivid memory of like spring my senior year, and she said basically like if you walk across the stage and break your leg, no one's gonna pay for like whatever medical bills. She like put this fear of God in me. And so I was like, I gotta find something. So I ended up finding my first position at Conner Prairie, which is a living history museum on the north side of Indianapolis. They have costumed interpreters. And I thought, this is amazing. I had a minor in PR and theater, and I really I pictured myself like, churning butter, and it was gonna be awesome. And then I realized they weren't full-time and didn't get medical benefits, and so that quickly went away. But they were hiring a group sales associate, so someone that could help market their destination to tour buses that would come in. So I took the job. And that was over 25 years ago, right at 25 years ago now, and I have never looked back. It's been an amazing, amazing journey in the tourism world. So I started at Attraction, was there for about 4 or 5 years, and then I went to the State Office of Tourism, which I'll touch on what they do. They are still in existence, sister organization of ours. I worked there as the marketing director for about 5 years. And then I had my daughter, I stayed at home, and I did a lot of contract work for tourism until 2014 when the association was looking for a new director at the time, executive director. They had only an existing director for 2 years. She had association management, but not necessarily tourism background. And so the board talked to me at the point that I was kind of getting ready to come back and said, is this something you would be interested in? And I've been with the organization since 2014. I love my job. I love working statewide. I love being an advocate for what I see happening in communities throughout the state and how I can help them do their job better. Phil has been a wonderful partner since he started 2 years ago. South Shore has been a member for many, many years now. I work a lot with their staff, and so thank you for the invitation to be here. I love getting outside of my home office and actually seeing tourism in action. I spent the night over at the Hampton last night, got to have dinner at the Hard Rock. It had been too long since I had been up here. I won't even say how long, Heather, but I'm just really thankful to be here today. So a little bit about our association and what we do. This is just a sampling of some of our members. We have about 110 organizations that are members of the Indiana Tourism Association. We started as a only DMO organization back in 1980, way before my time with the organization, and really we're just focused on those county level destinations. In the last 8 years, I would say, we've started ramping up our membership outside of DMOs. So you'll see on here Holiday World, you'll see Fair Oaks. We are not a large enough state to have an attractions association. So we say, hey, if you're an attraction and you want to get professional development advocacy, come under our umbrella. I'll briefly mention that there is another sister organization called Hospitality Indiana, and that's hotels and restaurants. And then we are really in the DMO and attraction space. So that's an example. Out of the 110, 72 are county level bureaus. And then we have about 20 attractions. And then we have other state associations. We have reciprocal memberships with other groups that are touching tourism across the state. Our mission is to advocate the value of tourism in Indiana's economy and support the best practices of our destination marketing organizations, which I say are not just county level DMOs, but many of our attractions are those as well. Just want to talk a minute about what that means. Everything we do falls into 2 buckets: professional development or advocacy. So we offer a summit series 4 times a year. They rotate around the state. We're actually going to be back here in September for our marketing summit. I'm very excited about that. We have an exec summit coming up next week in Southern Indiana. And this is an example of one of those meetings that we had. We hold digital roundtables. I made everybody smile while I took a screenshot of everyone. We hold about 30 digital roundtables a year for our members where we pick topics. And it might be websites, research, visitor guides, you name it. I'll have a member that says, I want to talk to people about X. And I said, well, let's put up a Zoom call and see who wants to hop on. So we have 30 of them. We'll have anywhere from 5 to 40 people that are on the call just learning statewide with one another on a variety of topics and sharing and collaborating. Never have a speaker, rarely have a speaker, I should say. We're just sharing amongst the group. We have our Indiana Tourism Academy. I mentioned a little bit ago, we have a parent organization called Destinations International, and they offer a full-blown certified destination management executive program, which is amazing. And I like to remind people it started in Indiana in the 90s, and they bought it from us and put it on steroids. And about 5 years ago, we realized that that program, while amazing and very, very robust, was cost prohibitive for a lot of our members. So we created what we kind of call a baby CDME, or the Indiana Tourism Academy. This would be like your local leadership, county leadership program, but statewide for tourism. We are in our 5th class. We've had about 55 people graduate from our academy. We teach them about tourism at a larger level, what it looks like statewide, what research looks like, marketing, advocacy. It's a great program. We're really excited about how it's enabled us to kind of build a deeper bench looking forward in the tourism industry. We also host an annual conference, the Indiana Tourism Conference. This year we had 375 folks that got together in downtown Indianapolis. It moves around the state as well. For 3 full days of programming that we bring in speakers. And most everything I'm mentioning, you do not have to be a member. We have non-member rates. And I always tell people, I don't need you all to be a member, but I need you to understand what opportunities we have for you to come and learn. I will also say if you're affiliated with South Shore on their board or in any kind of capacity, reach out. There are resources that we can provide since they are a member of our organization to you. And then lastly, just a couple things that we offer as any association would. We have tools, advocacy tools, we have emails, we have website resources like job descriptions, research that we're constantly sharing. We have committees that are working on things. The piece that I didn't spend a time working on, and I don't think it's on my next slide, no, is our legislative, I should have a picture of Michael Solari, our legislative director, as we call him. He is our lobbyist. He is working very, very hard at the State House on anything that touches tourism, that we can have a statewide voice for that. And there's been several things over the years that he's been active for us on. And then he helps us as we talk to our members about local advocacy. So it's not just at the State House, right? It's also what you're doing with your local elected officials, but also what you're doing to prove as a partner in a community what you're doing in your own town, in your own county that we offer. Then I briefly wanted to mention there is still the state agency that is focused on tourism. They are the Indiana Destination Development Corporation. They are a sister organization that I would say as well to us. We meet with them on a regular basis. Where the clear lines kind of delineate, they do all the marketing. So if you see Visit Indiana, if you get the guide, if you go to visitindiana.com, they do all of that. And we kind of do the behind the scenes business side of tourism. They are so fortunate still through the next couple years are not only doing statewide economic impact, but they provide that at every county level for free. So our counties can say, this is what I bring in comparative to them. And then these are the numbers that they have gotten. I think these are from 2024. They're a little bit in arrears. We do advocate on their behalf because they're state agency, they cannot lobby. And the sad tale of theirs is that their budget was $20 million for 2 years, and it recently got cut to $3 million. That stat is sobering. A good context is that it was at $5 million and it went to 20 and then down to 3. So we were battling against, as you guys know, Illinois across the way and Michigan. We are working at a huge deficit to market Indiana, and so we're helping promote them and figure out how they can hopefully get some more dollars in the next cycle, which will happen obviously next year. Okay, there's a lot. But thank you for bearing with me. Now I want to talk a little bit about tourism and what it looks like and a little bit of a history lesson for you guys. So the next slide, I believe, will have a lot of information that I don't even want you to read because there's just so much there. But I did want to take a second because sometimes it's a good reminder for people to understand how we got tourism funding. What does it even look like and what does it mean? I think most of you know there's an innkeeper's tax that you collect in your county when you stay. This is almost anywhere that you go in the country, by the way. There's going to be an innkeeper's, a hotel, or a bed tax, right? And it was designed to be collected and remitted to help promote that community moving forward. It started in Detroit back in like the early 1900s because they had a car, I don't know if it was a car show, or they had brought all these people together around the automobile industry, and they were thinking, how can we kind of use this to our advantage to help us in the future? So they started it, and then in Indiana, it started in 1973 in St. Joseph County, South Bend. And then now we have, out of the 92 counties, actually there's a county voting today to start collecting innkeeper's tax, which I believe will put us up to 82 counties that will be collecting. And again, it's collected and remitted, so the name is a little bit of a misnomer. The innkeepers don't pay it, right? They collect it and remit it, and it goes back in. I put the other ordinance and stuff in here just because I often speak to groups that aren't aware of the policies, procedures, state statutes, accountability, all these pieces that the state offers to give guardrails on how it is funded, how it's collected, how it comes into your county, and what it can be spent on, which is all very important and things that we are constantly working and talking about in our everyday. And then collection and structure, you can obviously see some of the pieces on here. I will just talk briefly about structure. I would love it if all of our 82 counties that collected operated the exact same, but they don't. There's probably 72 different ways that it's working in our communities, and so we are constantly, and some of those are very, very good reasons for how it's operating and what it's looking like. And then we come in and kind of say, here's the state statute, here's the best practices. If you're operating this way, this is what it would look like. This is the paperwork, things like that. So some, like Christine here, she is a county level organization. Some operate with a not-for-profit, and so we kind of walk alongside and help people understand that and navigate all of those waters. I always think this map is fascinating. So in Indiana, most everyone is at a 5% innkeeper's tax. So you can kind of see this is red. You have some outliers there. If you go outside of 5, typically, and some people that are red, like Lake County, have their own state statute down at the State House that has to get passed on the collection and how the funds get collected, all those kinds of pieces. But most people are at 5%, as you can tell from this map. Okay, enough of kind of the boring stats and slides. I tell people, because I've been in tourism for 25 years, and sorry, Heather and Phil heard me use this analogy last night. I grew up on a farm, very rural community, so I like farm analogies. When I started in tourism 25 years ago, tourism was very siloed in a community. It was kind of doing its own thing, blinders on, head down. I'm going to have a travel guide. I'm going to have a website if I'm really cool in 2001, right? But I'm going to be focused on visitors only. Even the attraction that I worked with, we were not talking within our community. We were focused on visitors. And so I put up this slide to show kind of this older approach of what it looked like. And tourism was like, it's my money, what we think, what our project is going to win. Nobody else really understands what we're doing. And so this is kind of where we're operating in. I have seen this drastically change over the last 25 years in such a way that is hugely positive and influential in communities across the state. So then I put up this slide of what this newer approach is that I'm seeing. And I, like going back to the farm analogy, I say it's now that you're in the silo and you look up and realize there's a barn, there's a house, there's the implements, and we all need to work together, right? Economic and development. We have to work with our chamber. We have to work with our community foundation. We have to work with our attractions, and we all sit at the table together and we're like, this is actually our community's money. What are we going to do with this to make a difference in the quality of place for the people that not only come and visit, but also the people that live here? It's not just advertising, that is hugely important, but it's looking at the development. It's looking at what we can do to better what our community looks like, and it looks different in every community. Every time I go and speak somewhere, I hear an example where I'm like, oh, that's fascinating. Like, yeah, that would probably not work in X community I was just talking in, but here it makes sense because of the makeup, because of the, whatever assets you have. An example I give on this a lot is there was a community in Jackson County, Indiana, which if you're not familiar, it's Seymour area. It's going to be in between Louisville and Indianapolis. And many years ago, she called me and said they want to build a sports complex, and I'm not sure we should build a sports complex. And they ended up doing a feasibility study, which showed them that Columbus, Indianapolis, and Louisville all had sports facilities, and they were actually getting all of the overnights that were overflowing from those communities. And if they were going to build a sports facility, all it would end up doing would be moving those events from those 3 destinations into their community, but not really changing necessarily their room nights, right? They decided not to do it. It wasn't going to make sense. Not for them, not there, right? We don't need every community to look the exact same, because there's things that your community can do that someone else can't because of your assets and because of what you have. And I think that's just really, really important. So what I've seen in the last, like I said, 25 years, so much change in just how people are approaching it. I will also say that the phrase that maybe you've heard before are heads in beds. Heads in beds, really important about heads in beds, because at the end of the day, a head that stays in the bed at your motel, your hotel, your Airbnbs, your VRBOs, you're collecting income on that. Absolutely. But today, heads in beds mean all of those heads and all of your residents' heads. Because what you're doing in your community not only affects the people that are coming in, but it affects the people that are there. Okay, so I wanted to talk a little bit, and this is where I borrow information. I'm going to have to put on my readers to read my notes on this. But our parent organization, Destinations International, does a study every couple years. It's called Destination Next. So they do massive surveys with multiple DMOs. This year, in this study from last year, they had 537 industry leaders and professionals. It was 36 countries. And then they had a global advisory council that went through the survey results. And their goal is to say, what are DMOs looking at today? What have DMOs been looking at the last 5 years? And where are they looking going into the future? What is going to be really important? So I mentioned this farm analogy, right? It's not just about me, what I'm doing for tourism, and how I'm bringing visitors in. It's how we're working together. And because of that shift, you're going to see in these next couple slides how that's kind of come out and played. One of the things that they listed out were these 8 strategic themes that they believe are going to define where destination leadership is going. And I can make the slide available if you guys want this afterwards. But you can see some of these things that are, in my mind, very different than what I would have seen 25 years ago. It's not about the numbers of visitors that we were able to get from 50 miles away, but you're looking at things like shaping places for people and prosperity. That's a very different thing, right? I'm looking at 4 there. You're looking at securing an investment through advocacy and impact. These things are very different than just saying, I want someone to come to my festival. That's an important piece. That is definitely part of what we do. But look at these that are just so community-minded, community-focused, developed on who you're creating your community to be and become is really, really exciting and such an opportunity. And I'll add here, because I don't know which slide I want to say it on, but the one unique part that I think tourism can bring to the table in a community is oftentimes they are the only group that has an audience that's outside of the community. You have the mailing list, the feedback, the surveys of people that are from 50 miles away that are coming in and saying, this is what I experienced. Good, bad, or ugly, right? But it can bring another voice to the table, so when you're looking at your community, you can be like, these are some of the things that we could be working on and we could be shaping. Okay, I have a couple more slides that I want to talk about with them, and then I'll probably just open it up to questions for you guys. There's a lot on this slide, so I'll tell you the pieces that I think are kind of important. I mean, you might have other ones, and that's okay. What you can see here on the left is where things moved from the last 2 years that they did the study and what things are brand new. And that's where I think it's really interesting when you look at this top 10 trends and you see that the top 2 are completely new. They didn't even come up on the study when they did it 2 years ago. Tourism needs increased advocacy and recognition from government to grow economic impact. We were recognizing that there was a disconnect between what tourism entities were doing in communities and what they were perceived to be doing in communities. And so one of the things, and I know Phil and his team do this so well, one of the things I've talked about in some of our smaller communities is what are the relationships and the partnerships that you're working on so they see you as someone at the table willing to help out. I have a community in another part of northern Indiana that I would say is like the research person for their entire community. They call her and she's like, yep, I'll run a report and I'll show you what this is doing. And she has made herself invaluable to them, right? And they recognize her as an important player in their community and what they do. Number 2, need for multidimensional KPIs to go beyond traditional economic metrics. So not just looking again at those basic heads in beds and some of those things, but there's different ways to look at what we're doing and how we're actually shaping our community. And I won't read through all of them. The other one, number 7, I think is the one I wanted. Oh, our destinations working with their board and stakeholders on roles and responsibilities. And this is something that we have seen such a shift. I would say 25 years ago in some of our communities, the boards were not involved boards as much as I see now. I see now boards walking alongside, and I know you have a board member here today, boards walking alongside our bureaus saying, oh my gosh, I believe in this mission, I believe what we're doing, and I'm here to partner with you. Again, a lot of other things on the slide. I don't need to read them all for you. And then the top 10 strategies. And the 2 that I wanted to point out on this one is number 2 and 3 both moved up 15 spots in 2 years. So leading destination advocacy by strengthening government relations, you're kind of seeing a theme here with advocacy and the role that these tourism organizations play in their communities and what they can do. And then strengthen local community engagement and sentiment to build sustainable support. In the last, I'm even going to say 4 years, it's been almost surprising how often I've seen members now say, well, I'm getting ready to do X, Y, and Z, but I'm starting with talking to our residents. We had a community that did a whole brand and strategic plan launch in the last couple years, and they invited their local residents to come out and be part of the process. They wanted to hear how do you spend your Saturday in our community? Are you going to the county next door? Why? What do we not have that you want to go experience? And they were just outside of Indianapolis, so they got some really interesting feedback on it, right? We have people doing resident sentiment surveys. Like, do people understand the value of opening up our doors and bringing other people into our community? Because honestly, as you've probably heard, there are places that this over-tourism is starting to be a challenge. And the reality is that there's a balance there, but when we have these other people come in and spend time here, we're getting a better economic impact. We're getting more dollars to spend. We're actually being able to create a better quality of life for our people that live here. But where's the balance and making sure people understand that and don't just say, well, I had to wait 40 minutes to get into the restaurant that I love. Yeah, you did, but look at what this community got to see and got to experience from those people coming in. So yeah, again, I'm not going to read through all of these. I think it's really fascinating, and I'm so thankful that we have access to some of these tools and resources that we can share with our members to say, look at these strategies, look at how they're changing, look at what you need to be thinking about as you're a community player and what you can do to build them and make a difference in your community. And that, I think, guys, is all I really have for you. Yeah, so I hope that what you gained today is a little bit of understanding of what it looks like over and how the change has happened over the last 20-some years with tourism, how it had started and kind of where we are, and how it's really, I think it's been amazing to see each of our communities take this new approach of like, we are at the table, we are a partner, we are sitting down to not only talk about advertising and marketing, but how can we help develop this to become a great place to not only visit, but also live as well. So yeah, that's what I have for you today. I don't know if you want to open up to Q&A. I don't know if my time... Anybody have any questions? Yes, she has a mic right behind you.
Yeah, my name is Chuck Hughes. I'm President and CEO of the Gary Chamber of Commerce. And my question is this. I know that there are some wonderful things going on in all of our communities. In Gary, we have the Railcats baseball stadium that attracts a lot of people. And my question is this. There are initiatives that we do at the Chamber. Now, we're not a baseball stadium, but by the same token, we are an entity that's trying to help attract businesses, whatever. We host an event around Thanksgiving where we bring in high school basketball teams from around the state and Illinois. And I think I can't think of anything else that's going on in my community that focuses on attracting young people, which is very important in a competitive environment, but teaching them sportsmanship, civility, those kinds of things. And I just wonder that if we're not the high-profile kind of entity, how can we get support? Because at whatever scale, whatever numbers we bring in young people, but by the same token, the message is essential to students and student athletes that we're able to deliver. And so
Just trying to get your question is about getting your message out for those events that are happening to get more
yeah,
people
yeah.
in.
Not being a high-profile entity like a baseball stadium or
Right.
or in Hammond, a football stadium,
Yeah.
so to speak. that's
Yeah,
coming.
and I feel like this is such a common question too, right? Because there's so much noise in the marketing space of events that are happening, and how to make sure that it gets to the right person at the right time. My recommendation, again, I'm not the marketing arm, but of what tourism is in the state. But I always say the partnership and the relationship that you have with the folks within your community and even in the next door neighboring communities that can help you get that out more, even in the small ways, can make a bigger impact, right? So not just looking at, man, if we only had $1 million that we could market this, boy, we would blow it out of the park. But maybe there's 4 people that I know that have a small marketing budget that could help extend our reach and get people out there. I mean, I don't know if this is completely answering your question, but I was reminded of a story the other day that a community was saying, this event's happening and they're not even asking us if we can help. They don't even, and this was years ago, and one of my colleagues said, well, have you asked to be a part of the process, right? Like, have you asked if you could sit at the table, right? Are there places you can say, hey, I just want to come and learn, share what we're doing. I'm not asking for anything. I just want to be in the room to hear what's happening, to see maybe if there's partnerships that are working down the road. But continuing to be open-minded of who the relationships you have, the partnerships that might be out there that might seem unlikely, but could help get you more exposure. Does that help?
From the tourism entity, locally or statewide, is there any support for people who do these
Yes. I mean, I guess the answer to that would be there are event listings on visitindiana.com. There are grant sponsorships and opportunities through some statewide organizations that are outside of our association. But I think there could potentially be, and I can talk to Heather about maybe if there's some resources we could share with you. Actual support for that would have to be from the state office, is what I would say for that. Yes.
Let everyone hear your question.
I don't want people to hear how much Michigan spends.
Hello.
That's what he was talking about.
Good morning. The state of Michigan spends about $40 million a year in marketing. We spend $3 million, so that's like 13.5%.
Yeah, like just hard stop and
more.
pause on that.
So what are we doing
Yeah.
to not to cover that distance, but to kind of make us more competitive?
Yeah. Well, gosh, like this could be a whole talk in and of itself. So I was at the state tourism office when Pure Michigan launched Pure Michigan, which I want to say was 05 or 06. And I do remind people that when it happened, not everybody in Michigan loved it. There were some people that they didn't resonate with it. But what Michigan did was they put $30 million behind it at that point for 15 years. I mean, they said, we are going to spend $30 million for 15 years, and Ted Allen's going to be the voice of Pure Michigan. I actually don't care what their brand would have been with that much money in the market for that many years. I mean, Pure Michigan was amazing. I'm not saying it wasn't, but I mean, you had the market, right? Like they are now actually less than 20 because I have talked to them. They've gotten cut. But we have constantly been working at a deficit, not only with them, but if you look at any of our neighboring states, I think we are 48th in the country, or were at one point. That actually didn't matter as much to me as we were less than half of our neighboring states, which is really who we're competing to get. Right? I mean, it's just, Michigan, Kentucky, Ohio, Illinois, we're all at half of their budget. They are working very hard at the state agency to make those dollars work as much as they possibly can. They are working on the angle of PR and earned media and how can we get out there as much as we can. There's only so much you can make up with that big of a deficit. I mean, that's just the reality. And so I have friends all the time that go to Pure Michigan, and I have visited Michigan. But I just have like this gut visceral reaction when I see Pure Michigan that I'm like, I just have, because people are like, well, Pure Michigan is just so amazing. I'm like, I mean, yeah, they are, and Ted Allen did great. But it's really hard to make up that deficit, and we do have great ROI in the dollars that we are spending. We have to spend it very differently. We can't go out, Indiana can't go out and buy the downtown buses in Chicago. We can't do it. So what do? We create a very targeted marketing campaign in one suburb where we're gonna hit them as much as we can and get them to come in. Or we're gonna go into Columbus, Ohio, and we're gonna hit a very target market with a campaign that goes to their houses, right? We have to be smarter, and we are doing that, and they are getting the ROI ROI on it, but it's not going to move the needle as much as when Pure Michigan gets their 20, 30, 40 million dollars, and Ohio and Kentucky get theirs too. I am happy to say that we are hearing from the governor's office right now that they recognize tourism is underfunded. Now, my follow-up question to them is, do you think it should be from 3 to 7 or 3 to 20 or 3 to 12? Like, what are we going to be able to get next year, right? I mean, 20 would be amazing. But to be quite honest, 10 would be amazing at this point, right, for us to get those dollars. So we're starting to have those conversations. We also have conversations with some other legislation, one in particular called tourism improvement districts, which would, if we can get statewide enabling legislation, it would allow a community, a city, the range can be kind of whatever you want it to be, that says, we believe, I'll give an example. We believe this downtown stretch would benefit from a marketing campaign for First Fridays. So we're going to build a tourism improvement district. We're only going to include restaurants and shops, or hotels and shops, or maybe just shops. We are all going to agree to a plan and an assessment and what it's going to look like, and we're going to collect it for, it has a term on it, 3 to 17 years, I think, last I saw the language that we had proposed. And we're going to use that money, and all of these business owners that are actually being assessed are going to spend the money specifically on our plan, and we're going to have control over it. We think that is another opportunity to give local communities an opportunity to say, hey, wait, we feel that this is a need. We want to assess ourselves to be able to do this and have the say-so over it. It would be amazing. That would allow some local communities to make a difference. There have been some states that have actually done statewide tourism improvement districts to kind of help fund some things. So I know that was batted around at one point. I think there's some opportunities. I think the challenges that we have is that is a huge gap to fill, and it's many years that it's been happening. And so to say we're going to be the next, or we can get where, that would be really challenging for us. But let's look at the dollars that we do have. Let's be incredibly targeted in where we spend them. And let's watch that incremental growth and not bail on not having any message out there. That would be the worst thing ever, right? And sadly, some of the times Indiana has gotten his name in the news has not been for the most positive things. I go back to RFRA, which happened, almost 10 years ago now, and some of that really had hurt us and took us a step back, and then when you don't have the marketing. So I don't like to say, what can we do to be Pure Michigan? I like to say, okay, we have limited dollars. We can't get there for a variety of reasons, but how can we use this as effectively as possible to make the needle move for us? And we are doing that. It's just you're not going to see it in the biggest of splashes like you will with Pure Michigan. Did that answer your question? They do. And I think this is Midwestern states have been saying this for years, and obviously it's rearing its head again because of gas prices and inflation. We can be that smaller, shorter destination trip with honestly just as much great experience as you can get somewhere else. I mean, my family's so sick of me ordering travel guides from all over the Midwest and making them go on trips because I said, we get 3 hours from home, and you can feel like you are on a large, massive trip, and you're having a great experience, and we can get that at half the cost, right? So all of our communities are talking about that. The state's talking about that. How do we continue to lean into that opportunity right now? Because people are traveling that way, and they are going to say, I'm not going to drive to Florida and spend a week, but I could drive to Brown County. I could drive to the dunes. I could drive, let's get them to recognize us as an opportunity for that trip. And when the Bears come here, yeah, you have a huge opportunity, right? A massive opportunity to build on that, which is super exciting, right? And even, downstate, we're talking about that a lot. Like, how are we going to capitalize on that? And I know even Sports Corp and the money that we have on some sports finances through the state, we've said, hey, how can we use that to help that? Because this is going to infuse our economy in a great way. Yeah, huge way. Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I'm Terry Stiegel. I'm a retired steel worker, 41 years there. And I think what we got to do is we got to do a better job of having industry, the community, and the environment coexist better together. And we're going to have to put more demands on corporations that come to our communities and don't take those things into consideration. A good example is the data centers. We need data centers, but we need to be able to coexist too. And some people laugh at me sometimes when I say, we need these migratory corridors in this farmland so that the birds, the bees, the butterflies, and the wildlife can exist. Yeah. And that needs to be part of the development because, you know, those butterflies monarch butterflies come from Mexico all the way up here.
Yeah.
And if we don't provide the proper environment for them, they stop coming.
Yeah.
And when we lose our pollinators, we're going to lose our yields and our farms too.
You know, I am very encouraged by the shift in I mean, just culturally and socially about how we're viewing things from an accessibility, a sustainability, and ecotourism land. I mean, I don't go to any conference now outside of our state that doesn't touch on all of those and how we need to be accountable for what we're doing and how we're doing it in a way that that is positive for our community. So I agree with you. I think the conversation is way more prevalent than it was or than I heard 5+ years ago. Does that mean we've checked it off our box? Absolutely not. I think we still need to be thinking about that and recognizing it. And I do think, to your point of having that conversation, I think a lot of times tourism entities in the room can help bring some of those perspectives that aren't always at the forefront. And again, accessibility is one that's up there too that we hear talking about a lot. But all three of those, sustainability, ecotourism, and accessibility, if we can help bring in those conversations so people are framing it that way, I think that's, yeah, I agree with you.
Did you have a question? I heard, sorry. Okay.
Hi, Sue Baxter from Panorama Now. I don't know if you can answer this, but I think everyone needs to be aware that artificial intelligence is changing everything. And are you guys looking into that? And what are some of the solutions that you have?
That's a quick answer. We are looking into it. I kind of go back to talking about sustainability too, because I have heard some speakers starting to begin to say, hey, where we're headed is not sustainable with AI, but also harnessing it when and where it is beneficial. So, I mean, the lens of which I look through AI is how our members are using it effectively, appropriately, and making sure that ethically it's all in the right places and spaces, right? So we talk a lot about what that looks like. You know, you don't, I mean, you're getting the weeds with tourism. You're not going to create a AI image of your destination that someone's never going to experience and doesn't look real, right? So like those are the kinds of things that we're kind of talking about. But I do think in a larger scope, there are questions that we need to figure out outside of even tourism of what does this look like and how do we manage it. But it is on the forefront. Almost every meeting we have some speaker that's coming in to talk to us about how we're approaching it, what are the pros and cons and challenges. You can't ignore it though, it's here, and I do think we have to figure out the best way to move forward and make sure that we're responsible about how we're doing it.
Thank you, Carrie. Can we give a round of applause to Carrie Lambert, please?